The man just took a light look at the missile and it went out, and then it split into dozens of nuclear warheads in the air and it landed on the target. But Tony didn't expect the weapons he just showed to almost kill himself on his way back from the show. The car team was suddenly attacked by the enemy, and the bodyguards were shot to death. Tony got out of the car and ran away, but when he was hiding behind the rock and trying to call for help, something suddenly fell on his side and it was too late for him to react. The strong impact flew him out, although he was wearing a purple-gold armor, but the film still penetrated his body. In the process of fainting, he only felt a severe pain in his body. Then he was covered with his nose and completely fainted. When he woke up again, he looked like this. He wanted to drink water with his hands, but he found that he had no strength in his whole body. He just wanted to get up quietly, but he was pulled back by the rope. Tony turned around to see clearly and found a battery connected to his body. Tony got up and asked what was on his chest. The light said it was this thing that saved his life. It turned out that Tony's blood vessels were full of bullet shards. The battery wire on his chest could prevent the bullet from flowing into his heart. It turns out that the real purpose of their arrest of Tony was to get him to make a new weapon. Here and then, they took Tony to show the arsenal and said that they could provide whatever material they needed. Tony looked at the weapons on the ground, and he was stunned because they were all from Stark Industries. The purpose of his weapon making was to maintain world peace. In fact, he had already calculated the plan of Taobao in his mind, and then took out the elements of it and reshaped them after they had melted at a high temperature and finally got a bracelet-sized ring. After using this body, after 49 days of sweating, he finally got a small electric arc launcher. This little thing can not only replace the dangerous life-saving device but also have a big use. When Tony was puzzled and asked, he took out a set of design drawings and put a few drawings on top of each other before he found that it was a set of steel armor. In order not to be found, all the parts of the warhead had to be separated and then assembled. But when Tony looked at these parts, the leader of the terrorists found something wrong. He rushed in and asked Tony what he was doing. Dr. Lighthead explained that this was just a part of the missile, but the other party was obviously not good enough to kill the doctor. Tony joined forces to stop him and said that the subsequent production still needed the doctor's help, although the other party let the doctor go, but also gave the last deadline. If the missile could not be handed over tomorrow. On the other side of the road, the leader of the gang found something wrong in the surveillance. He sent 2 girls to check on the situation, but Tony had an ambush and he put a bomb on the door in advance. 2 little caramels were just about to open the door, and the gang leader sent out all his men, but Tony's warhead was about to be launched. The doctor rushed out to pick up the gun in order to buy him some time, but he ran to the door and ran into a large group of caramels. At this time, Tony's warhead had been loaded. Iron Man's first-generation warrior, Mark I, appeared out of thin air. A gunman, Carla, held a gun in his hand, and the caramels flew straight into the caramels Tony again. A little bit of love for the magic circle. This is the gang leader holding a weapon against Tony. Tony joined forces to fight him, and then came to the doctor who was suffocating. Tony hoped to leave with the doctor, but the doctor was seriously injured and stayed here forever. Tony came to the entrance of the cave in a fit of anger and was surrounded by countless bullets. However, this was just a little bit of a stir for Tony. The caramels desperately finished all the bullets, and then Tony turned on the fire extinguisher and burned the enemies in front of him. In the end, all the weapons here were destroyed. As the enemy base exploded, Tony also turned on the takeoff device at the end. The only thing that was lacking was the lack of energy in the armor. Fortunately, there was armor protection. Tony was just a little tired. When Tony came home, he realized that the weapon not only did not bring peace but also provided the terrorists with a chance to win. This completely violated the original intention of Tony to make weapons. After the company's 28-year-old bald head rushed out to stop the end, the bald head rushed over to question Tony. May I ask if the weapon company does not make weapons? Is it a toy for selling children? But no matter how Bald Head persuades, Tony will not change his mind again. After that, Tony studied a new reaction team and asked the assistant to help him change his little pepper. After that, Tony devoted himself to the development of the new armor and finally collected all the pieces of the first-generation steel armor. An evil idea came to his mind, and soon Mark II's leg-powered device was designed and completed. Tony was excited to welcome the first test flight. The next step was to fly out with the hand-powered device. After countless tests, Tony was finally able to fly stably, and everything was ready for the new armor to take off. Because it was the first time to test the flight function, Tony wanted to see how high the armor could fly, but when it reached 40,000 feet, the armor froze. But Tony did not listen to Havis's persuasion. As a result, the armor appeared to be fatally frozen. Fortunately, at the last minute, Tony opened the wings in time, which broke the surface of the ice and settled down. And as the armor was unsealed, Havis reappeared. The thrill of this flight made Tony fall in love with the armor completely, but when he landed, the armor met a new problem. Because Mark II was too clumsy, Tony smashed through the third floor directly when he landed. At first, Tony was still upset about his injury, but when he saw the little pepper as a birthday gift for him, no wonder the mood immediately dissipated, so he started to work overtime to study Mark III. Tony's physical quality is really not comparable to that of ordinary people. He flew around in the sky and had the energy to do research and development. While ensuring the strength of the fuselage is lighter and the color is directly referred to as its own red car. While ensuring the wake of the wood, try to keep a low profile. The rest of the work was handed over to Havis. Tony has been in seclusion for so long that it's time to show up. But he found out at the party that someone was still buying and developing weapons, but he had already stopped the production and development of weapons. Why are there still a lot of weapons in the hands of terrorists? Tony was convinced that there was a mole in the company watching the terrorists on TV taking their own weapons and hurting innocent people. This completely angered Tony, and then he had to make those terrorists pay for it. Tony wore a brand new Mark III armor and fell from the sky. He didn't know how much money he was going to make. The rest of the work was done quickly. In the face of the terrorist who kidnapped the hostage, Tony accurately aimed at the target and then shot it. The little Karami was down on the ground. It was just a little Karagami who was about to report the news. Suddenly, he was thrown out. But when Tony was looking for the criminal's leader in the air, he was ambushed by the enemy. He just blew Tony up. But fortunately, his armor, this time, is a little bit stronger. He just stood up and breathed a sigh of relief. The enemy's armored vehicle was destroyed in an instant, and Tony was about to fly home after completing the mission. But when he was in the air by the military, he was seen as an unknown flying object. Tony was attacked by a military fighter. Finally, Tony called Rod to explain the situation. On the night of the safe return home, the company's second-hand bald head appeared in the camp of terrorists. It turned out that he was the one who planned to kidnap Tony's behind-the-scenes Black Hand. The reason he came over this time was to find out that this group of people had gotten a secret weapon, and it was Tony's first-generation warrior Mark I. However, the terrorists at the time were no longer useful to him, and when the little Chili came to the office to retrieve the information, he accidentally found out everything. At this time, the bald head suddenly walked into the office and the little Chili could only pretend to be calm and turn off the page. Then find an excuse to get out of here, and the bald head quickly turned on the computer to check the situation and found out that his plan had been leaked. Then he ordered the scientist to shrink the anti-aircraft shield of Fangzhou and then remove the anti-aircraft shield from his chest to know that once Tony was gone, he would die of a heart attack in 15 minutes. Before the bald head left, he claimed to kill the little Chili. Tony, of course, wouldn't sit and wait to die. He went through the box and climbed to the original anti-aircraft shield, but his physical strength had reached its limit. In the end, he fell on the ground helplessly, and in his despair, the box floated by itself. It turned out to be his mechanical hand. At this time, Rod also happened to come over. He told Tony that the little Chili had taken people to arrest the bald head. Tony was in a hurry. Then he hurriedly put on his armor to support the little Chili and saw that the little Chili was about to die. Fortunately, Tony arrived in time. The angry bald head lifted a small car and Tony gathered all his energy to his chest. The bald head was directly swept back, then quickly react to the small car and quickly pull a foot. The bald head was buried in the ground. Ah, that's it. Then lift the big foot and hit Tony. It's a good thing that Mark III's armor is strong enough. Unexpectedly, the next second, the Iron King's feet sprayed flames in the mirror. Because the Iron King is flying for the first time, Tony is sure that the bald head must not know that the armor will freeze at a certain height. Tony flew straight up into the air. Unfortunately, the electricity in front of Tony's chest was getting less and less. The Iron King pulled Tony by the tail. Fortunately, it had reached the height of the ice. Tony has a start. Iron King dry pull, a iron hammer. Iron King directly fell down 10,000 meters high, ere Tony just took off his gloves ready to go home, just wanted to raise his hand to return the machine, but found that he did not wear a hand. A left fist has not come in time to run, but was hugged by the Iron King in his arms and almost crushed to death. Although Tony dodged a blow with his little intelligence, the strength of the Iron King is not to be underestimated. The only way is to let the little pepper open the company's giant reaction pile. He let the little pepper open all the switches and then let himself lead the Iron King to the top of the reaction pile. The Iron King also pulled his back and threw it out, because the strength of the two sides is too different. Even Tony's helmet was stuck to the ground, and then Tony was a good ride. Fortunately, the little pepper was ready to go. The reaction team released a huge amount of energy and Tony was blown out by the shock wave, and he survived, but the bald head was not so lucky. The strong current directly rushed the bald head to the cloud bridge with the energy scattered. Bald head fell into the reaction team and caused a big explosion. 2 months later, Tony was badly injured, and a reporter questioned his reply. Tony almost said that Rod quickly reminded him to follow the speech concept to see 3 links. We will see you in the next video.